Greetings, loyal subjects of the Imperium of Man. I am Librarian Elias of the Adeptus Astartes. I am creating a series of recordings with the intent of educating the general populace of the dangers of the galaxy. All of this information comes from the Lexicanum provided to me by the Adeptus Mechanicus. I will be reading verbatim from their archives. This recording will cover one of the few allies the Imperium has, a chapter known as the Minotaurs. The Minotaurs are a loyalist space marine chapter with a particularly brutal reputation and mysterious ties to the High Lords of Terra. The Minotaurs are a relatively mysterious chapter of the Adeptus Astartes, as they are principally notable for the fact that, beyond the last 1,000 years, most records of them appear to have been locked away under seals so tight, even members of the Inquisition find them difficult to open. In addition, other records appear to have been lost or mislaid. The matter is made even more complex by the existence of conflicting historical records relating to the Minotaurs Astartes chapter. These records have led to uncertainty on if the Minotaurs, who first appeared in Millennium 32, 36, and 41, are of the same chapter, or multiple chapters who have shared the same name. Finally, the chapter is rumored to possess some form of direct tie to the High Lords of Terra themselves that allows them to circumvent other forms of imperial bureaucracy completely, a rumor that has given the Order Hereticus some cause for concern. The founding of the Minotaurs is much of speculation and debate. A chapter listed as the Minotaurs was recorded in action as early as Millennium 32 in the suppression of the Solar Rebellion, notably working alongside other Astartes chapters. However, other records indicate that the Minotaurs were not founded until the cursed 21st founding in Millennium 36. The recorded actions between Millennium 36 and Millennium 38 lead to the Minotaurs being known as Berserkers. While noted for quick responses to calls upon them for aid, they were also known for ignoring command trees and battle plans completely and simply engaging the enemy onto their destruction. This reputation for being unreliable allies resulted in the Minotaurs being shunned by the main body of Imperial forces. This suited the Minotaurs fine, and sometime in Millennium 38, they simply disappeared from Imperial records. The Minotaurs unexpectedly reappeared at the beginning of Millennium 41 during the Macarian heresy. The Departamento Minotarum noted discrepancies in their behavior, structure, and appearance of the Minotaurs compared to their records since the cursed founding. In exchange for their previous disposition, they operated in concert with larger Imperial battle plans, much like the reported actions in Millennium 32, although still preferring to keep to themselves. While they attempted to remain aloof from Imperial observers, no one was able to miss the fact that they were not a fully armed and equipped chapter who deployed a dozen strike cruisers during the campaign, a notable and curious amount of resources for a supposedly long-missing minor chapter. Some observers have noted that the Minotaurs respond immediately and slavishly to the directives issued by the High Lords of Terra themselves, and have linked this apparent unquestioning behavior with their large amounts of high-quality war material. However, this speculation cannot be proved. The Minotaurs of Millennium 41, whilst appearing more at home within the bounds of the Imperium and seemingly enjoying the patronage of the High Lords, have still managed to acquire an unsavory reputation amongst some of their fellow Adeptus Astartes, with examples such as the Ultramarines and their allied successor chapters, in particular, have refused to fight alongside the Minotaurs. As a result, both of the Eucene incident, in which the Minotaurs almost completely eradicated the Interceptors chapter and took several of their relics to their flagship for their own armory, which some saw as an overreaction, as well as their public insulting of Marius Kelgar and the provocation given to the Genesis chapter during the 14th siege siege of Antigonus, the Minotaurs, much like the Carcharodons, entered the Badab War at the request of the legate, Inquisitor Frayne, on the side of the loyalist imperial forces as a part of the wave of reinforcements that arrived in the Maelstrom Zone. In 907, Millennium 41, the Minotaurs had committed their entire chapter strength to the campaign and operated as a largely independent raiding and harassment force for much of it. They achieved fame for their cold-blooded and merciless attacks on the secessionists and were considered the preeminent close combat and shock assault troops in the war until the arrival of the Carcharodons. Their most lauded achievement during the war was their complete defeat and forced surrender of the Lamenters, a secessionist chapter, which took the form of a 17-hour battle made up of vicious boarding actions and close-quarter battles. While victorious, this battle did result in significant casualties for the Minotaurs, and they spent most of the rest of the war on interdiction duties in the space lanes, as well as carrying out punitive actions against previously rebel worlds. They were present at the end of the war in some small capacity due to their expertise in siegecraft, and at the war's end departed with several vessels of the Lamentus fleet as prizes. In the closing decade of Millennium 41, the Minotaurs were extremely active, with forces of unknown strength aiding the early stages of retaking of Rin's world and harrowing the excommunicated Night Reapers chapters alongside the Red Templars and Grey Knights. Almost immediately after the conclusion of the campaign against the Night Reapers, the entire chapter was deployed in the Orphean War. Despite their efforts, the Orpheus sector was formally disbanded, and the Minotaurs were charged with purging it with the aid of the former Battlefleet Orpheus. Later in Millennium 41, sometime after the formation of the Great Rift, much of the Minotaurs' gene seed stock was supposedly tainted by the Death Guard invasion. The Minotaurs thus began the quest to reach Terra and pure gene seed stock, lest the chapter waste away. The Minotaurs were amongst the first to receive the Primaris program assets, and were the first Space Marines who were deployed on Terra after the start of the Indomitus Crusade, not only to cleanse it of the Chaos cults and other ripples that remained there after the massive demonic incursion, but also to replenish and recover their gene seed stocks. By the end of the purging, the Minotaurs arrived in a full chapter strength. Later, it was revealed that the Minotaurs had been used to bring the Hexarchy members out in the open. When the coup was suppressed, all of the rebel lords were killed by assassins, to which the Minotaurs briefly battled the Sisters of Silence and Custodes, who were protecting the High Lord and the Master of the Assassinorum. However, they ultimately obeyed the decision of one of the loyalist High Lords, Violetta Roskeviller, Master of the Administratum, and departed from Terra. Due to some sources being unavailable, sealed, or lost to time, there is a rough timeline of events that involve the Minotaurs. I will be reading it as such. Millennium 32, the Minotaurs are noted to have taken part in a counterattack against the Solar Rebellion, despite the fact that this predates their believed founding by several millennia. Millennium 36, supposed founding as part of the cursed 21st founding. Millennium 37, 999, Millennium 37, the War for the Andromax System. The Minotaurs were deployed alongside and coordinated with the Adeptus Custodes and Adeptus Mechanicus forces. Destroying traded forces in their captured strongholds was the result. Millennium 38, the Minotaurs disappeared from Imperial records, and no known sightings ever since. Millennium 41, during the start of it, from 053 to 077, they reappeared and joined the suppression of the Macarian heresy, alongside the Eucene incident took place at some point during this time. 760, Millennium 41, the defense of Hermetica took place that involved the Minotaurs, defending the hive world of Hermetica from a war host of word-bearers, traitorous Astartes. Before 907, Millennium 41, the Minotaurs combated orcs from the Octarian Empire. During this time, they insulted the Genesis chapter. Then, in 907 to 912, Millennium 41, they took place in the Badab War. 913, Millennium 41, the Minotaurs chapter finally leaves the Maelstrom Zone. 989, Millennium 41 to 992, Millennium 41, they reclaimed Rin's world from an orc menace. During that time, the harrowing of the Night Reapers, culminating in the Perun Cross incident, in which the Night Reapers chapter were declared excommunicate traitoris and fought against the Grey Knights and Minotaurs. Also during this time, the Minotaurs took place in the defense of the Black Gates of High Vitria, where they battled against the Genestealer cult of the Dreaming Deeps. In 992 to 995 Millennium 41, they took part in the Orphean War, at the end of which they were charged with the exterminatus of the worlds of the Orpheus sector by decree of the High Lords of Terra. Finally, in modern history, the Minotaurs would battle the 7th Plague Company of the Death Guard as they launched an attack on the Minotaurs' fortress monastery, and while defeated, they nonetheless were able to take the chapter's gene seed. The Minotaurs began a desperate quest for survival to reach Terra and access purified gene seed. While on Terra, they would take part in the Hexarchy Rebellion and the Indomitus Crusade, as they would be sent to Faustus IV, where they were deployed to recapture the Void Docks from the Thousand Suns. And finally, the Minotaurs were deployed during the Necmund Rift War, an ongoing conflict near the Eye of Terror. The organization of the Minotaurs is unique to their chapter. The Minotaurs appear to have no particularly distinctive organizational facets on the surface, and are only really notable for two somewhat unusual factors. The first is that they seem to prefer to operate in chapter strength whenever possible, and do not appear to engage in small-scale campaigns. The second is that they are supremely well-equipped and seem able to replace losses of both material and personnel with little difficulty. Because of this, the numbers of the Minotaurs are estimated to be almost always around full strength. They do not seem to have any difficulty in recruiting initiates, appear to have an indoctrination and conversion process that is remarkably swift. Imperial observers during the Antigonus campaign noticed that the transition from neophyte to scout to full marine in the chapter was remarkably fast, and also highlighted the heavy use of hypno-indoctrination and neurocerebral surgery involved, as well as the monitoring and refreshing of these techniques in full marines by the apothecaries of the chapter. These methods have led to rumors that the chapter master, and possibly other members, are engrammatically enforced personalities and memories. The armory of the Minotaurs is one of their unique traits, as, from a purely technical point of view, the Minotaurs are superbly equipped with Space Marine arms and armor. Their armory includes extensive stocks of Mark 8 and Void-modified Mark 3 power armor, with sufficient access to Terminator armor to equip the majority of their first company, including the rare Tartaros and Arcanak patterns. In addition to large stockpiles of Vindicators and Predators, they are able to field squadrons of Storm Eagle gunships and Spartan assault tanks. Due to their tradition of taking relic war gear from Astartes chapters they have defeated, many of the relics in their armory were taken from other chapters. Another unique part of the Minotaur's armory are their Terminators. The Minotaurs are able to field an unusual number of contented pattern dreadnoughts, with at least 10 active during the Orphean War. These are addressed as Hecaton, a word of Terran origin thought to mean giant, legion, or a monster enslaved. While Space Marines are typically reverent towards dreadnoughts, the Hecaton are treated with cold indifference. The Minotaurs who disappeared in Millennium 38 were known as barely restrained berserkers in battle, foregoing any combat methods that do not include melee or hand-to-hand. They were known to quickly respond to any distress calls from embattled Imperial worlds. Upon reaching a combat zone, the chapter would throw themselves full force into the fight with little care for reconnaissance, intel, strategy, or casualties. Once satisfied, they would immediately withdraw all forces and leave. Other Imperial commanders noted that the chapter was often as much of a hindrance as a help, as as they refused to coordinate with any other Imperial forces. After the Minotaurs' reappearance in early Millennium 41, their combat doctrines apparently changed as much as their appearance. Minotaurs showed a far greater willingness to work with the greater Imperial military structures, whereas before, they ignored them entirely. While still known for being merciless and relentless in combat, the Minotaurs no longer become uncontrolled berserkers. The Minotaurs now display a preference for deploying in as few divisions as possible, which allows them to excel at siegecraft, attrition warfare, and combating monstrous enemies with sheer weight of numbers if need be. Like previously, the Minotaurs now rely heavily on tactics and battlefield data, with their chapter master, Asterian Moloch, often reviewing and analyzing combat data aboard their flagship. A key tactic of the Minotaurs is to engage in attrition warfare in a confined area, willing to suffer any loss as long as they achieve victory. Since their reappearance, the Minotaurs no longer are shown to respond to just any distress calls. Instead, they have been shown to only respond quickly and without question to missions issued by the High Lords of Terra, of which involve combating other Astartes, seemingly to prove themselves against fellow Astartes chapters. The Minotaurs are also noted to be so strict with the security protocols that it borders on paranoia, being distrustful of many other Imperial servants. However, with the Imperial Fist, they have displayed outright hostility and violence. The gene seed of the Minotaurs is shrouded in mystery. Fragmentary records of the Minotaurs' founding during the cursed founding of Millennium 36 indicate that the gene seed was chimeric. While they avoided the genetic mutation that occurred in other chapters from the same founding, they quickly achieved an unsavory reputation of being uncontrolled berserkers. However, whether this is the same chapter as is currently recorded under the Minotaur name is highly uncertain, as records of the Minotaurs chapters predates the cursed founding. The current Minotaurs show no tendencies for becoming wild berserkers, instead being far more controlled and strategic, as well as being known for their brooding, malign, and obsessed with their defenses and security protocols to the point of paranoia. Like all Space Marine chapters and legions, the Minotaurs have notable elements that are unique to themselves. Notable relics include the Black Spear, an ancient artifact in possession of the Minotaurs' chapter master, Asterian Moloch. It is a deadly relic blade that houses a powerful, single-shot laser. The Crozius Arcanos is a weapon similar to a Crozius Arcanum with a built-in assault launcher. It is currently wielded by Reclusiarch Evanis Encomi, and is said to be built from Encomi's own shattered Crozius, or the remains of a relic of the Night Reaper's chapter. The Unmaker's Torch is an Astartes chain fist used by the Minotaurs chapter, and special-made heavy bolters known as assassin bolts, which differ from standard bolts as they replace the standard propellant with short-burn magna fusion charges and the mass-reactive warhead, which results in extreme speed and density, which allow the rounds to be both highly destructive and highly accurate. Much like the Carcharodons, the Minotaurs are a fleet-based chapter, and as such, they have uniquely named ships. These include the Daedalus Krata, a heavy assault carrier and relic ship, the Daughter of Tempests, a battle barge claimed from the Lamenters that was destroyed in the Amara Void Battle, alongside the Fidelitas Lambda, which was also destroyed. Left are the Fidelitas Omicron, which was a battle barge, and the Bronze Catechist, a strike cruiser. Notable land vehicles include the Dakor Rex, a Land Raider Phobos pattern, the Scylla, a Damocles Command Rhino, Tartarus, a Spartan assault tank, and the Glory of Krata, a Razorback, 3 of which, except the Tartarus, were destroyed. Notable members of the Minotaurs include Asterian Moloch, their chapter master, Evanis Encomi, their Reclusiarch, Zelos, a Terminator brevet captain, Thule and Ulrich, captains, Hamath Kratos, a Vigilator sergeant of the 9th Company, Geryon, a veteran sergeant and later contender pattern dreadnought who was severely wounded in the Amaro Void battle. Iacos, Morbus, and Palaemon, all Hecaton contender pattern dreadnoughts. Ephesios, some form of dreadnought, and Zojak, a battle brother. This concludes the information regarding the Minotaurs. More in-depth information regarding them will be recorded at a later date. This is Librarian Elias, signing